Hey guys, thanks for joining us here on flynubianqueen.com, the network for melanated women like you. I am Rasheedah Anderson, a contributor here on the Fly Nubian Queen Network and also the host of The Couch. And I have with me tonight Matthew Phifer, who is also a panelist on The Couch. It is a show that we do weekly on Sundays, and we're going to be popping in on some days of the week. And so we're here tonight, and we want to get into this conversation about the Currys. And so tonight, what we're asking is, do the Currys have an unhealthy relationship? We know that there's a lot of conversation about what Ayesha Curry said on the Red Table Talk, and we're going to get into it in just a bit. But before doing so, hey, Matthew, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for coming on with me tonight live, short notice. And also tell the people about your background and your practice before we get into the conversation.
I have a clinical mental health counseling degree from St. Bonaventure University. I live in Dallas, Texas, just recently relocated to Dallas, Texas from Washington, D.C. I work with people on dating, relationships, and toxic relationships. And among other things, I also have an entrepreneurial background and have a couple of businesses, but this is therapy and working with people on their relationships is my passion.
Okay, cool. So if you are one who deals with toxic relationships, you can give us some insight on to what's going on here. So before I get into that, I just want to remind everybody that here on The Couch, we have a panel of mental health professionals. The panel meets every third Sunday, and we have all of the panelists on, and we'll have a topic, and then in between on Sundays, I meet with the panelists one-on-one. They're all mental health professionals, and we're coming to have conversations about mental health from the Black perspective, and also in hopes to normalizing it, the idea of it in our community so that we are seeking help. So as I go into this conversation, so be sure to catch us Sundays, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. So we have Ayesha Curry, who goes on to Red Table Talk with the women, the Curry women, her mother-in-law, and her sister-in-law. And that's Jada Pinkett's show here on Facebook. And so they start to talk about the difficulties of being a wife of a basketball player and what it's like to be out in public and all of these things. And so Ayesha Curry shares that one of the challenges of just dealing with women and her husband being such a nice guy and not, I guess from her perspective, not really knowing how to control so much of the attention. And he's just a nice guy and he doesn't know when to turn it off or when to have people turn it off. And then also because he is this successful basketball player, that he gets a lot of attention and from women, and she hasn't gotten any from men. And so she's feeling, I guess, a little, it's creating some insecurities in her and making her feel less desirable. So Matthew, what would you say is going on, that could possibly be going on here?
There's a couple of different dynamics that are going on here. First of all, I've seen a lot of people talk about the fact that she wants attention from other guys, and have really shamed her for it and kind of questioned whether or not that they have a healthy relationship. It's very, very natural for people to want to be wanted. Doesn't mean that she wants to step out. Doesn't mean that she wants to cheat. But most people still want to be wanted. I mean, it's for a long time. I mean, you hear about guys who still want attention from women. No one really says anything about it. No one blinks an eye. When guys get back into the gym, things like that. It's very healthy. It's very natural. It's flat out. I don't care how long you've been with someone. It's flattering to get flirted with by somebody. It doesn't matter it doesn't mean that you want to step out. It doesn't mean that you don't want your husband. As a matter of fact, if anything, I could make an argument that it makes your relationship stronger. And the reason why is because the beauty of being in a relationship, in a healthy relationship, is the fact that you can, but you choose not to. So the fact that she, I think that, she might have been a little, maybe on this type of platform, a little bit too open, a little bit too honest. She's in her history and her past, she's been a little bit too naive at times, and on certain platforms, on Twitter before, not realizing the platform that she's on, and she's been naive before, But when I first heard this, I didn't think much of it until it started to really explode. But it's very common for people to still be wanted by other people. But once again, the beauty of being in a relationship is that you have choices that you could make and you choose not to, because
Right.
you value that relationship, to that extent. And everyone always wants what they can't have. You're in a relationship and you can't choose other people. And when you're single, you don't have that one person that you can just come home to. You know,
Right.
and people who are single aren't happy with the fact that they don't have anyone to come home to. And when you're in a relationship, you don't have that choice. So it doesn't surprise me, and it's very, very common.
Okay. So for those of you who are joining, please be sure to, and who are actually on the live, please be sure to like the post. The more likes that we get of the post, the actual post, the greater our chances of reaching more people to bring them into the conversation, and also share this out. We have a perspective from a mental health professional, so we want to take that into consideration and not just be reactionary in what our thoughts are. And so hopefully the information that Matthew shares today will offer some insight. I see a comment from Darnell. I see we have a couple people on. I believe that's Nikesha. Forgive me if I'm saying your name wrong. Kenneth, Stacy, Janine, and Darnell. And we're going to get into your comments. So you guys share it out, tag people. I see that Janine has already done that to bring them in the live. And please put your comments there because we will get to them. So yeah, it's interesting. Because I watched the interview in its entirety, and because there was so much conversation about it and it was trending, I was thinking, okay, let me hear what was said. And to me, that was like the smaller part of the interview. And honestly, if people hadn't have brought my attention to it, I don't know how much I would have paid attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like she said anything that anybody wouldn't be able to relate to. And I know that I think for some men, I think it may be difficult for them to hear this. And I'm not a man, and I'm only speaking from what I see. And I'm gonna use an example of like for example, when from what I could tell, you have Jay-Z and Beyonce, who we would all consider to be a power couple, right? Are that's just what they are known for, just a term that's used to describe them. Both very successful A-list celebrities at the height of their game, can tour and probably sell out all over the world. So, and they have done that. So
Right.
they are very successful and powerful entertainers. And then they're a couple. And so you have an issue where women, when they see a man that's in a powerful position, he's wealthy and all of these things, women will not respect that a man is married. And they can be even vicious about going after him, because in their minds, I'm trying to replace her because I want the position that I assume she has. But it seems like that doesn't happen. Men don't do that to other men. And I don't know if it's because men maybe just a low key, like she may have men maybe that are low key who kind of throw a little flirting out there, but they're not just so bold and just like, for example, when I'm saying bold, I'm thinking about what happened a few months back with Steve Harvey's daughter and how they were at some event with Jay-Z, and hear what he was saying, but if you think you know how to read lips, it looked like he was telling her, I'm married, like back up, like she was doing a little too much, and he was respecting the boundaries of his relationship. But who's not in spaces with who's in spaces with Beyonce and Jay-Z and don't know they're married? Like, just about everybody would know that. And so for her to still be flirtatious and still try to make a pass at him in a very public place that his wife was showing up to very shortly, I don't see men necessarily doing that. I don't see men crossing the boundaries with other men. I don't know if there's like an unwritten like respect among men, or if because he's in such a powerful position that men would feel like, oh, I couldn't measure up, like I couldn't offer her what Jay-Z is offering or whatever. But the dynamics with men and women are very different. And I think that men should consider that when they're in, if a woman, and because we're speaking about the Currys, but this could very well be happening in your relationship where your wife or your girlfriend may feel like because of the attention that you're getting, that she's kind of living in your shadow. And especially with some high profile people. Ayesha Curry, I know she has her own career. I know she does her own thing, but her husband is a big star. I mean, he has so many rings. He's a phenomenal basketball player. So you can't even compare the two. And we only know her because of him.
So it's very interesting. This is where I'm going to show my nerdy side, but it's from a biological perspective. Men don't want to be coddled, where they don't want to be overshadowed. Men want to be the man, period. Right. So if you're, so I'm going to go back to like, let's say prehistoric days, right? When there's a dominant male that's with a female, right? A guy's not going to approach that female because in those days, he would probably be killed by that man, right? In this situation, obviously, Steph isn't going to kill someone, but he's the more dominant person, the more dominant male. He has a contract of $200 million. He's, like you said, he's a phenomenal basketball player. He's all over the place. A guy, is not going to approach Ayesha unless he feels like he is a better man than Steph, period, point blank. And where you actually do see a guy that would approach someone like that or would approach a female, it has nothing to do with the so-called respect or like unwritten rules or anything like that. But if a guy feels like he is better than the guy that she's with, you'll see it all day, every day. If Steph was a clerk at a grocery store, Ayesha's going to get approached.
Okay.
100%. If someone's making $500 million and a better basketball player than Steph, Ayesha's going to get approached by him, or by if Steph was coming off the bench and making $500,000, then Ayesha's going to get approached by the more dominant basketball players, period.
Mm-hmm. Got you. So the dynamics there is because her husband is in such a powerful position. Right. Okay. Men are going to feel like they don't,
That's right.
They would have to compete hard for that. That's not going to come easy.
Right.
It's kind of what you're saying. Okay. I get what you're saying there. But then I think that how much of that do maybe he needs, and I'm not sure if he needs to, but should he have some level of sensitivity about his position? Being aware now. I know a lot of people will say, she knows what she signed up for and all of these different things. But I feel like in relationships, both parties have a role to play, or both parties have some responsibility in it. So what responsibility, if any, do you think that he has in helping to reassure his wife? Now, I don't mean that he's responsible for her completely in terms of how she feel and her feelings and thoughts and all of that, and her insecurities are her own. But I do feel that we can help support our spouses with with reassuring her to be secure in how she feels in a position that he holds.
Yeah, it's extremely important. He has, even though she does have some responsibility, he has a good portion of that responsibility to not only validate her and make her feel wanted, especially the fact that he's on the road as much as he is. I talk to people who are in sales and who are on we talk about Ayesha and Steph, and they're on such a major platform, but I like to bring things back to like, to our level, to like the more common level. People, we have a lot of people that are on our level who travel a lot as well, that are in sales, and when you're on the road and when you're, in a powerful position in our situation, you still need to validate. I tell people all the time, you need to keep the courtship alive in your relationship. Validate them. Consistently, tell your woman or your man how beautiful they are or how handsome they are and things of that nature, because you can't take situations like that for granted. I'll use a more personal situation. Even though I'm single, one of the best relationships that I was in, we used to ask each other all the time, like in a flirtatious way, like, hey, like if they came home from, being out, did you get hit on tonight? And if they said no, if I said no, or if she said no, like, oh, well, you should have, because you look great tonight. It's flirtatious and being, but in a healthy way,
right.
And I think that in a healthy situation, in a healthy relationship, you expect for your significant other to get hit on and to get approached. And the reason why is because in a healthy situation, both parties, both the male and the female, are going to bring their best foot forward. So it's almost an expectation for the other person to get approached every once in a while. But once again, the beauty of the relationship and the beauty of a healthy relationship is that they could step out, but they choose not to.
Right. So for those of you who are just tuning in, again, I want you to like and share the post if you have not already done so. And also text the word Queens to 31996. You can go to flynubianqueens.com and subscribe there. It's the network for melanated women. And also, if you want to be a support to the network, you can go to shopfnq.com to purchase some of our apparel. I'm Rasheedah Anderson, host of The Couch. It is a show that we do weekly with mental health professionals talking about mental health as it relates to the Black community. And I'm here with Matthew Phifer. He is one of the panelists on The Couch. And we're here talking about this situation with Ayesha Curry and Steph Curry. Is their relationship unhealthy? Is this a sign, that their relationship is unhealthy? Because she's talking about how she's really, to me, the way that I saw it is that she's living in his shadow. He is bombarded with beautiful women. I remember there was a clip that was going around maybe a couple months ago, and it was really, a couple years ago or so, and it was really cute. I think when his popularity really started to take off, and he was being interviewed by one of the reporters, and she was an attractive woman. And then all of a sudden, you see Ayesha Curry pop right in the middle of them. And so he just turns to his wife and he just laughs because he knows that. And it was so cute to me. He's like, my wife is crazy. And so he finishes his interview, but he's distracted by her and he was laughing. And I thought that was just like a cute moment between the Currys or whatever, because I could just imagine the conversations that they might have had around, attractive women. This particular woman, she's a reporter. She's attractive. If we believe the stories that are told about the women in the industry, in the sports industry, a lot of those women are looking for a man. It's an opportunity for them to snag one of these athletes, and so there could have been some flirtation or some passes made. Who knows? But yeah, I see it kind of as her living in the shadows. And like you said, let's just bring this down to everyday people. We know that there are celebrities, but let's just connect it to everyday people. I think that, or I'm wondering, are we really in touch with how difficult it must be to live in the shadows of someone else? I understand this is her husband and they're supposed to be on the same team, but just in human nature, like if you're a guy and you're out with your guy friends all the time, and you have this one guy who's always getting attention, the waitresses are always hitting on him, women are always just giving him attention, and they act like you don't exist. Would you feel some kind of way about that? Again, if you were a woman and you are out with your girls, but one or two of your friends is always getting attention and you're not even getting acknowledged, would you feel some way about it? want to know, I'm just wondering if we're honest about that, or do you see that that's a issue, or am I off? Like, help me to understand what's going on here.
No, everybody wants and needs a sense of value and a sense of purpose. And the fact that he's as big of a star as he is, and she feels overshadowed. And I don't think that we can't downplay the fact that they've also had they also have three small children in the matter of, I want to say, just a couple of years apart between one of them. Right. We can't downplay that fact because there's so many other factors that come in with that when it comes from a woman. I mean, her body has changed. He's constantly on the road. She's, I presume that she's at home, taking care of the kids. I don't know if I don't know their family dynamic, if she has family help or if she is, or if they have a nanny. I presume that she's not working outside of the home. So there's a lot of issues of her finding value, finding her place, finding purpose. And I'm using her as an example, but this is with everybody. I mean, you can be literally working, but not be happy or satisfied with your job or your career and still wonder and still feel that lack of purpose and feel that lack of value. So for her to see him, not only is he a great basketball player, but he loves what he does.
Yes.
And he knows his sense of purpose. And this I do know about the Currys is that they have a very deep sense of spirituality. Mm-hmm. And with that comes that sense of purpose and that value of purpose. Mm-hmm. And if she doesn't feel that, and she feels like, I could be doing a whole lot more than just taking care of the kids, and I could be doing a whole lot more than just supporting him. And a lot of people feel that way. I could do a lot more than just supporting my husband as he fulfills his role at, in the sales department. A lot of politicians, Elizabeth Warren, her husband is a stay-at-home husband, from what I understand, and has been supportive of her political career. Mm-hmm. Same thing. I could be doing a lot more than just doing this. I could run for office as well.
Right.
Look at the Obamas. Michelle had to give up her law career, to support her husband with him running for office. Right. A lot of people have sacrificed a lot, their entire life to support their spouse. They've achieved a lot, but who knows what Aisha could have or would have been had she not supported Steph. Right. I mean, if it were Stephen Blurry instead of Stephen Curry, I mean, maybe Aisha has had some other dreams and visions of what she wanted to be and could have been had she been with somebody else instead of Steph. So there's always the possibility of, what's going on in the back of her mind of what she could have, would have been, and dreams that she's given up to support her husband. So there's a lot of validation issues that possibly could be going on. But we, without diving in deep, we really just don't know at this point.
And it's interesting that you say that, because I think that the conversation was good and there was other aspects that were highlighted, because his sister, who's married to a basketball player, actually talked about when they were asked about them choosing not to travel, opting out of traveling with their husbands. And mm-hmm. So the sister said, I have the option. However, I kind of choose when I do it because I don't want my whole life to be centered around my husband. I don't want to be everything that he does. And so you kind of lose yourself. And I think that when men may not sometimes understand, and I know that it goes both ways, but I'm only speaking of women because women are the ones who are the child bearers. So, quite naturally, it's just kind of by default. The woman, if the finances are there, even if it's not the finances, the woman is going to be more of the caregiver to the child, at least initially. So I don't think that sometimes men maybe understand. I think what it is, possibly, and you can help me to, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that it's kind of on autopilot, the way that we operate, we kind of treat it like, oh, that's what you're supposed to do. Oh, well, that's just natural. Well, that's how it's been done, without pausing to realize, like you said, some of the sacrifices that are made in order for you to do that. For taking the time to realize she is a woman, she is a person, she is an individual outside of being a mother and a wife, and that she may have goals and aspirations that she may want to pursue, or that she is putting on hold, or just if she wants some free time. I think that people don't give any weight to the idea that not only is he traveling, he's playing basketball, but he has the freedom of not having to worry about, and I don't want to say worry, because I don't know that, because I know that his family is probably always on his mind, but he doesn't have to delve into the day-to-day. You know, he doesn't have to be concerned with, oh, the kids need to shower. Oh, you know, I need to get them dinner. When he's home, I'm sure he's hands-on and involved. But when you're on the road, you don't have to consider those things. And I understand that you're working, but still, when he's off, he's more than when he's on the road. He's not just off from a position of he's working, like he literally is off with the responsibilities of the family, and she is there carry everything, having to do all of this. And so I'm just wondering, is maybe we're not spending enough time helping the spouse or the significant other who is the one doing the traveling, or who is the one that's working, to consider what the person who's being left with all of these responsibilities have to deal with, in their absence.
I think that, so every situation is a little bit different. There's not a cookie cutter situation. And the ugly part of relationships, and people typically don't like it when I say this, but relationships, a big part of relationships are a negotiation, right? So I don't know what they negotiated, if they agreed that she would be a stay-at-home mom, she would take care of the kids and things of that nature. However, regardless if that's what they agreed to or not, one of the things I tell, one of the greatest quotes that I ever heard is that I'll take care of me for you, you take care of you for me. Right? So if there's situations that Aisha feels like she's not fulfilling being at home with the kids, and she agreed, clearly she agreed. I mean, Stephen's been playing since he's been, I'm assuming, 4 years old. Right. And they've been together since they were young. So she knew what type of career that he was at least targeting.
Yes.
So she knew what he was getting into, what she was getting into with him. However, if there's things that she wants to fulfill now, then she has a responsibility to Steph and to herself and to her kids to fulfill that. If that means that they need to get a nanny to help out with if that means that they need to get a maid to, help relieve some of the burden from her so she can fulfill her needs and her goals and aspirations and things like that, then so be it. If that's what it takes, if that's what she needs to better herself, to also better the relationship, so be it. And I tell people that all the time. I mean, and bringing it back to more layman's terms, once again, you see all the time husbands who are in sales and are out on the road all the time, and the mothers feel like they need to support the home, and and I'm not downplaying, because stay-at-home moms play a huge role, not only in their kids' lives but in their husbands' lives. But you owe it not only to yourself, but to your husband and to your family to fulfill those aspirations. You're actually going to become a better person for them if you're able to, if you feel like you need to pull back and you want to fulfill. Some people, there's a lot of mothers that open up nonprofit organizations or thrift stores, or go off to have their own career themselves, and it makes them a much better person for that relationship and for their family, because they're happy, they're satisfied. And when they come home, they're not drained. They have that sense of purpose and they feel valuable, right? And so because yes, and going back to Aisha and Steph, he has some responsibility to make her feel valued, but he can't do all of it.
Yes.
We and in society today, we actually have we have a big problem where we feel like all of our needs need to come from our significant other, and that's not true. That puts a lot of pressure on. Puts a lot of unnecessary pressure on our significant other. When we actually need to get back to, let's say your husband or your wife isn't into as much spirituality as you are. They don't like going to church every single Sunday. Okay, so be it. Like, you can go.
Right.
And maybe they go every other Sunday or a couple of Sundays or whatever, but they don't need to be in church every single Saturday, Wednesday, and that you are. But it's okay. And if you like going to play volleyball, and if you like going to lift weights and they choose not to, but that's your thing, so be it. But your significant other doesn't need to fulfill every single role or fulfill every single need that you have. It's your responsibility, not theirs.
Right. So it's like you don't lose your individuality just because you get involved in a significant relationship where now the person becomes responsible for, your happiness and everything. I think that it resolves a lot of conflict if you take that pressure off of your spouse. And even off of yourself because of what your expectations of your spouse is, like, for example, I think you used a great example with church, because is it your spirituality? Now, I do understand that you may not want to get involved with somebody who you feel like don't have any level of spirituality or, no sense of God. You may be like, I don't know if I want to get involved. But then once you know that this person has a solid sense of spirituality, you kind of have to let them figure that out on their own, how serious they want to be. Ideally, that would kind of be the same for both of you, but you just can't guarantee it. But it doesn't mean that you don't have a strong marriage. Doesn't mean that your spouse is the devil. It just means a lot of those various things that we probably assign to that.
Right. Your values 100% need to be aligned. Your compatibility needs to be aligned. But because your significant other reads the Bible at 5 in the morning every single morning for the last 3 years or 5 years, 50 years, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you need to do. I mean, your values and your compatibility need to be aligned. But the things that make you happy, the things that make you feel satisfied and complete, you're responsible for. It doesn't all. Some of it falls on your significant other, but all of it doesn't.
Yes. And so we can only expect our significant other to do what falls on them. Outside of that, you have to take care of yourself. No, I think that's great advice. Again, I am Rasheedah Anderson here with Matthew Phifer, and we are the couch here on Fly Nubian Queens network.com. What is it? FlyNubianQueen.com, the network for melanated women like you. Be sure to subscribe there. Also, we are on iTunes. If you want to listen to us on the go, you can go to iTunes and shop Fly Nubian Queen, and you can find us there and subscribe. Also, if you have an interest in growing your business or learning how to earn some extra money, you can go to FlyNubianBusiness.com or FlyNubianMoney.com. Now, I want to take a moment to get into some of the comments here. Let's see. I don't know. Nicole is just tuning in. She says, good evening. So good evening to you, Nicole. She says, men don't get it. Women need to accept it. So women just need to accept that men don't get it. We don't try to help them to get it, Nicole.
Well, right now we're talking about Aisha and Steph, so it's male versus female, but I've seen it multiple times. It's the other way around too. Where I've seen multiple times where the woman's getting a lot of attention and the male isn't, and it's a need of people, not necessarily men or women. Like, people want to be wanted, they want to be validated. You hear all the time. You guys getting back into the gym, they just want to feel like, or they, guys trying to get the number of a girl, they still want to feel young again, still want to feel like they still have it, so to speak. It's a people thing, not male versus female thing in this type of situation.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that oftentimes, because of what you described earlier, as men want to know and feel like they're that guy, that sometimes, because maybe that's how a man, that's his makeup, it's difficult for him to see himself in Aisha, difficult, because I was thinking the same thing. Just imagine if Beyonce was, for example, I don't even have to use her. Let's use Nicki Minaj and let's use Safari. That was the perfect example of him being the person who was in the shadows. Their relationship was not made public. She was intentional about doing that. When they broke up, she had a very public relationship with another rapper, Meek Mill. So can you imagine how he might have felt, some insecurities that he had, that he was kind of lingering in the shadows, and I'm kind of like the secret and quiet boyfriend, but I've been helping you with your writing, perfecting your craft and all of these things, but he wasn't getting that validation and the attention, even publicly. It was kind of like when you're not going public with your relationship, sometimes you're going out of your way to not validate it. I understand for you not wanting to have people in your business, and I'm not judging whether a person is doing it or not. I would just think that the person who's in the limelight would probably have to work extra hard to make sure that they are doing their part to validate that person in the privacy of their own relationship. But I'm just thinking that would be a perfect example. How many men could be a Safari, live in the shadows, and you have this superstar, girlfriend that all of these guys, she's an attractive woman, she has a nice physique, and all these men are gawking at her, and she's there, Women Crush Wednesday or Women Wednesday, however you say it. How would you feel? Can you handle that? Would you feel like, hey, I need a little attention too? Because isn't it, am I being truthful here? Don't sometimes men cheat? And I'm not saying women don't, but I'm just speaking about men, because of situations like that, feeling like that they're not being acknowledged or not getting the attention. So,
and then not only that, you just mentioned acknowledging them in the privacy of their home. I would actually extend that to public. I think that people in Aisha's position feel very differently when they're acknowledged very openly and to a point where they're borderline embarrassed. You know what I mean? Where where they're the center of attention in front of all the people that they're actually talking in this situation that she's talking about. I've seen, I followed the NBA for several years at this point. I've seen different NBA players, like at the free throw line, they'll blow a kiss to the camera, and they acknowledge in interviews that that's towards their wife, acknowledging them that way, making them feel validated, even during situations, writing their name on their shoes, because the camera zooms in on all basketball players' shoes, and, seeing their name with hearts around it and things like that. All those things that we think that are very simple. And so once again, I'll bring it back to layman's terms. Embarrassing your wife or significant other to the cashier or to the waiter or waitress, at a restaurant, when they come up and unexpectedly, being sporadic, that's the thing that it's those simple things that keep relationships very active. When someone comes up, isn't this the most beautiful woman you've ever seen? Things like that, like being very sporadic like that, keeps things interesting. Not only is it very validating, a woman might slap you on the arm and say, oh, stop. But of course, she loves it.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. And, she's embarrassed and but she absolutely loves it. And she knows that, for you to put yourself out there like that, she not only acknowledges it, but respects it and feels validated.
Now, I wonder, would it be too much for Aisha to do, or any woman in that position, to kind of guide her spouse in that area? So if there are, could she take this opportunity if women are just kind of flocking to her? And I think that I've even heard first ladies say this. This is not even talking about celebrity basketball player. I've heard first ladies of church, wives of pastors say, women push them out the way to get to their husband. And I'm not even talking about necessarily in a romantic sense. Sometimes, yes, but not all the way, always, you know, but they just kind of don't even acknowledge them, just kind of like nudge you. I don't even see you standing there. And so I think that would probably maybe in situations like that. So I'm sure if she's experiencing that, is there some kind of way where that she could just without being confrontational, but just kind of step into the situation and be like, oh, my husband, he is the greatest, you know, just kind of because she's also, you know, validating him and giving him some attention and reminding him, you know, that she's, you know, present. And also letting the woman know, like, I'm here. You're not acknowledging me, but I'm here. Would you recommend something like that? Or do you think that Steph needs to take control of this situation?
If she's being pushed out the way, that's on Steph.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got to, if she's, you know, in that situation that you're, if someone's disrespecting your significant other, it's on you to, you know, to put that person in check, you know, grab your wife, pull her close, you know, oh, have you met my wife? You know, have you, because the dynamic is truly between Steph and Aisha, not between, you know, and pulling her close and, you know, basically demanding that respect in a respectful way, shows that you're a unit. You're a, you know, that the two of you are one, and you're not just going to come up and approach me and push my wife aside and act like she's not there, you know. And not only that, but it changes the dynamic later on. You know, for Steph not to, if she were to be pushed out of the way and Aisha feels like she's the one that has to kind of, I mean, that's not even him being a gentleman and stepping up to the plate and protecting his wife, you know, protecting who she is and things like that. And I would actually say that it's also in reverse as well. You know, if the woman, you know, is the one that's kind of in the limelight.
Yes.
And the husband is being pushed aside by, you know, another guy, like, you know, for an interview or something along those lines. The woman is, hey, have you met my husband? Have you, you know, so it's in any situation like that, you need to present yourself as a united front.
I agree with that. Because even when I'm not judging how anybody decides to, you know, to move forward in their relationship, but I don't personally agree with the private relationship, or, you know, you not letting the public know that you're in a relationship, like with the example of Nicki Minaj and Safari. I wouldn't have liked, you know, I understand, you know, for your career, they say it's the best way for whatever reason, but I would have probably decided that, you know what, I don't think this is the relationship for me if I'm not going to be validated. But then I say that as a 40-plus-year-old woman who's had enough life experiences to be comfortable in the skin that I'm in enough to say I would find fault in that. A lot of times, and someone mentioned here that they're young, you know, and you talked about when earlier on when they negotiated, sometimes you make negotiations without the full scope of what that really means, you know, what it means to be involved with a basketball player. She mentioned, you know, even in the interview, somebody opening up the door, wanting to see their baby fully invading their personal space and privacy. And then the woman tells her, well, honey, you signed up for this when you married him, you know, just to insinuate that you should not have some level of privacy or something like that. So they're still young, you know, they're still, you know, still trying to figure it out. Still, I mean, I know that Steph has been in the limelight for a long time, being a good player, but it's different when you start to contend for rings. It's different when, you know, that popularity kind of goes to the roof, because before, you know, people may have thought that you were a good player, but now, you know, everybody is taking notice, and people who may not have been before. And unfortunately, that is going to mean additional women who may have not been paying attention before. So I do agree with that part. And I also agree with that's Steph's job, or the job of anybody who is in the limelight, or who was in the influential position that would cause them to have supporters, followers, fans, to make sure that their wife or their spouse, husband or wife, is never being neglected, and that people just can't run over them because, like you said, it's the united front and you're protecting your spouse in that instance.
Right. It's part of the responsibility of the relationship.
Yeah. So I see some people here. Hey, honey, my husband's on. Thank you, honey, for the words of encouragement.
Good job validating him.
Huh?
Good job validating him.
Yeah. He came in and he said, "Love you, honey. Keep up the great work." So I have to acknowledge him when he comes into my lives, although he's in the next room. But I appreciate him acknowledging me and what I do. So absolutely. Yadira, I'm not sure if she's responding to someone else. Here Nicole goes. She said, "I don't feel bad. It's 2019. You know the deal. You guys are harsh." But did she say she wanted what he has that's definitely not natural to be wanted? Like you said, she made a statement in public, and this is the backlash. I feel bad for her as a woman, but this is a double door, both men or woman. So I guess she's saying, she's in a public eye, so she needs to deal with it. And so Cal is saying celebrity marriages usually short-lived anyway, I think. Hopefully that's not the case, though, because I think in answering this question, I'm waiting to get a question here, and you can jump in and respond to anything. Based on this, do you think, Matthew, because we're talking about, do they have an unhealthy relationship? Is this a sign that their relationship is unhealthy? What do you say? Do you think so?
I don't know. I don't know enough about the relationship, but just this alone, absolutely not. I think that what she said shouldn't have been. Aisha is known to be very naive and not necessarily knowing the platform that she's on. But since we're talking about it, and because she opened herself up,
yes,
what she said is actually extremely, extremely natural, very common, and I don't think that enough people talk about it. Most people who are in a relationship, every once in a while, want to be validated by somebody else, right? Everyone wants what they can't have. You're in a relationship and you lack choice. You can't choose other people. You might see someone else that you might want to be flirted with. Doesn't mean you want to step out. Doesn't mean that you want to cheat. Doesn't mean that you want anyone else, but it's flattering to be flirted with. It's flattering to be talked to. It's flattering to, for someone to approach you, right? When you're single, I don't want to say you prefer, but sometimes it'd be nice to come home to somebody. Yes. Everyone wants what they can't have. If you're driving a Taurus, you wouldn't mind having a sports car every once in a while. Right. You're driving a sports car, sometimes you want, I don't want to say minivan because no one wants a minivan, but you might want a Ford Explorer, or you might want like an SUV. Everyone sometimes wants to experience the other side. That there's a reason why the grass is greener on the other side is a saying, but because sometimes you're just naturally curious, do I still have it? Can I, if I weren't with somebody, could I, does anyone still want me? It's just a natural curiosity that people have. I don't think that it means that they're unhealthy. I don't think that they have problems in their relationship. I don't see any of that. But what she said is very natural, and it's also very, very common.
Yeah, Yadira is saying she kind of embarrassed her husband by making that statement. In her opinion, that's what Yadira feels. Do you feel like?
I don't disagree with that. I think on a public forum, I think that I don't disagree that he's probably embarrassed because it was on such a public forum. However, I will say this: I think in a healthy relationship, it's very natural and it's very common and it's very healthy for this conversation to happen behind closed doors between the two of them.
Right.
I've actually had it's actually worked out very well for people when someone has gone to people in a healthy relationship. So there was a couple I was working with at one point in time. Woman was a waitress, and she was flirted with by a gentleman that she found very, very attractive.
Mm.
She felt guilty about it, talked to me about it, and we worked a way for her to comfortably talk about it with her husband.
Mm.
And so she talked about it with him, and he handled it very beautifully. And
Mm.
what he said was, he asked her, well, how did he approach you? And she told him. And so what he did was he reenacted that. I
Mm.
won't tell you what happened after the fact.
Okay.
It worked out really well for the both of them.
Okay. Okay.
She felt very validated. Not only was she flattered by this gentleman, but she felt very validated by her husband.
Right.
That not only are, not, of course, people, for him, it's like naturally, of course, some other guys are going to want you, but no one's going to want you as much as I do. And I'm about to show you why,
Right.
and, so it's very natural for people to not only want to be wanted, but for people to get approached. And, but it's in a healthy relationship, healthy men and healthy women are going to know how to handle those type of situations without jealousy, without envy, and are naturally going to be able to use it to strengthen the relationship, not to weaken it.
Yeah, because he sounds like a wise man to me. He sounds like a wise and secure man who's secure in himself and who noticed, okay, something about what this man did made you attractive and probably even turned you on a little bit.
Right.
And so that may be an area where there's a gap that I can fulfill the gap. This is probably a need that you have. So let me step in and fulfill the need. And so whatever attention she might get from that man from that any further, it may not mean the same because she knows that hey, my husband is very well capable of giving me the attention that I need. So although I may be flattered, I'm not even going to even think twice about whatever this person is doing or saying to me.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. We have Larry here. He's saying, how many women would trade places with her? Would you complain?
So once again, what I would say is that there's a lot of women that would trade places with her, right? But everyone's always curious about the other side. So they would trade places. And after a while, people forget that so it's just like, so when you buy a new car, everyone tells themselves, I'm never going to get this car dirty. I'm always going to treat this car really well. I'm going to make sure I get the oil changed, but you forget, like, after a while, that car or that new house is just everyday life. For Aisha, having a husband who has a $200 million contract is just everyday life to her. That's just, it's not a thing anymore.
Right.
It's not sexy anymore. It's not spontaneous anymore. It's not, it just is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care who you're with. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care how much your spouse or significant other is making. After a certain point, there's no, if the person isn't taking care of things properly, it's not exciting anymore. It's just everyday life, and so, yeah, there's a lot of people that trade with her because that to them is exciting, but after a certain point, it wouldn't be exciting to them anymore.
Right.
And
right.
It would just be everyday life. And I mean, you hear all the time. I mean, there's a lot of women who are in that position who do step out and, get with the gardener, or get with the butler, or get with, it happens all the time, and it's because they're looking for something more exciting. They're looking for that validation. They're looking, they want to feel wanted again, so it's very, very common.
Right. So once you're over the fantasy of it all, the excitement of it all, it's like you are in a relationship and you have to deal with that person just for who they are.
Right.
Not about their money at some point. That's not even the focus. It's about the person. And although he although he may be a $200 million contract basketball player, they started dating, I believe, in their teens. So he's really just the guy she fell in love with. So she's probably really not impressed with the whole "we got money now." I'm sure there was a level of excitement when he eventually went into the league and all of the successes that he's had. And so there's some excitement around those times. But on the regular, it's like, hey, this is just my husband. And money is not a replacement for my needs. It's not a replacement for my desires and my wants and my ability to be fulfilled.
Right, exactly. And people say all the time, they'd rather drive, a $500 Toyota Corolla and be happy than to drive, a Ferrari and be unhappy, And so, I mean, if I shouldn't say her, because I do believe that they're both happy. She just slipped up in a moment, but they, it doesn't matter. Your needs are always going to cry out to you and the people. If she felt like she's been feeling like she needs to be validated, it doesn't matter if he's making 200 million, 500 million, or $50,000. She needs to be validated. Period.
And can people use that as an excuse? I've heard a man, who was a successful man who was married and he ended up going through a divorce. But learning from the divorce, he says he remembers when his wife had an issue with something, he would just buy her something. And he would always bring up, don't I do this for you? Because if she was complaining, you're traveling too much, you're gone too much. He was using his success for her fulfillment. And she wasn't asking for things, she was asking for him.
Right.
So I think sometimes people could start using their success and their wealth to replace giving of themselves, which is usually more of a challenge than just buying you stuff, especially if you got a $200 million contract.
Yeah, people do use it as an excuse, 100%. It's not an excuse, but it is an excuse that's used very, very often.
So Jordan is here. Jordan is not happy about this conversation. He says, let's stop making excuses for this woman's insecurities and jealousy, because that's all it is. Those are her own personal battles inside her own mind. There's not even that much her husband can do about it. She should go to professional counseling.
Well, I think we said earlier that, to Jordan's defense, what we said earlier is that, Aisha plays some part in this as well, where, we all have a responsibility to our significant other to fulfill our own needs. It's a combination. He needs to make her feel validated, and she also has some of her own ownership to make herself feel valuable, make herself to fulfill her own purpose, fulfill her own needs, so she feels validated. Because once again, I have a responsibility so if I'm with someone, I'm going to take care of me for you, and you take care of you for me. So yeah, 100%. Aisha owns some of this as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't think throughout the conversation, we're letting her off the hook. Mm-hmm. We're highlighting the other side to it as well, because we felt like people's reaction to it was probably more than what it should have done, and not looking at the realities of whether you're male, female. We even said that here, everybody desires attention. And if the tables were reversed, the other person would not feel good living in the shadows. And there may just be some other person who's very good at taking care of themselves, that know how to fulfill themselves in place of this. But when you're talking about women in your face making passes at your husband and flirting at your husband right in front of you, like, is she not supposed to feel some kind of way, about that? Like, I think to say that, and for it to kind of even make her feel like, well, dang, he's getting all of the attention, and then there is that insecurity, like you talked about, she's focused probably more on the children and home life, the thought of if he snags one of these women, or if a woman is able to convince him to go her way, if I'm left on the market, am I going to be available? I mean, will I be able to find love again? I got these 3 kids and I'm at home. So there's just a lot of these thoughts that could possibly be running through her mind when she's saying this, and not not that any of us think that she's asking for, she's inviting anything in that would be offensive or detrimental or disrespectful to her relationship. Darnell here says, this is pretty good. He said the problem might be is she's been with him since their teenage years and haven't experienced anything else beyond him, beyond being with him. So do you think that that could be playing a part in the relationship?
Definitely, it 100% can play a part. Doesn't matter if they've been together since they were teens or if they've been together for the last 5 years. Once again, after a certain, I mean, everyone who's been in a relationship for a long period of time can acknowledge that at some point in time, all of the fun part of the relationship, the newness of the relationship starts to fade out, regardless if you've been together since you were teens or if you got together when you were 20s or your 30s and were together for 5 years. Eventually, after a while, the honeymoon stage fades.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the challenge and the beauty of the relationship all at the same time, is to try to keep that going. And so they've been together for a very long time, but regardless, that's a part of the relationship. That's the reason why people value relationships so much, is because of all the hard work that it takes and all the dedication that it takes. Relationships are a responsibility. I tell people all the time that relationships are a lot like having a dog. When you see other people with it, you say, oh, that's so cute, that's so nice, I wish I had one, this and that, and then you get it and you forget that it takes a shit. You got to get up in the morning. You got to get home at time. At a certain point, you got to feed it. You got to take it. You got to get it groomed, and they forget about all that. You got to take it to the vet. You got to pay all sorts of money for this dog. It's the same thing in a relationship. When you see other people with it, you want one, then you get it, and you forget all the responsibility that comes with it. And after a while, that starts to get a little bit old.
Yeah. And so, like you said, you have to be intentional about finding ways to keep the spark in your relationship. Yeah. So it looks like a few people agree there. But thank you so much, Matthew, for making yourself available.
No problem.
On and to have this conversation and to speak from a perspective of your profession. I know oftentimes we go on our rants about how we feel. And that's why I was very careful to ask, what you thought even of my opinions, because I know that I could be off. I could be seeing it, very one dimensional and not necessarily from a broader scope. So I thank you for coming on and helping us to see things outside of our emotions. And really could kind of, just kind of look at the situation and look at what roles husbands and wives could be playing to validate one another. Because I think that, I agree with you, whether she should have said this in public or not, that could be debated. But I think the idea of us having a conversation about a spouse's role in validating their significant other, spouse or whatever, is very important and is very real. And we need to treat it like it exists. And that, people, like we said, we understand that 100% people are responsible for a portion of their fulfillments and their security, but then your spouse also, plays a part in that. So we want to make sure that both men and women are acknowledging that in their relationships, because if you're going to have a strong relationship, you probably want to do some of this stuff. You want to be intentional about doing that. So thank you so much. And I will let you have your final remarks and give out your social media before we leave live.
So my final remarks are, a lot of people are really giving her a lot of help for this. But what I will say is that regardless if people are talking about it at home or not, everyone at some point in time feels this way. Everyone at some point in time, if you're in a long-term relationship, if your significant other has not felt like this, they will at some point in time. They will wonder. Doesn't mean they want to step out. Doesn't mean they want to cheat. Doesn't mean they want to leave. But they will wonder if they still have it. And so this is a conversation that you should have with your significant other. And I think that in a healthy relationship, it can actually make things stronger if you're having these type of dialogues and if you're having these type of communication. And if you want help to have this type of dialogue and want to open up that type of dialogue, you can reach me. I'm on Facebook. It's New Perspectives by Matt Phifer. I'm also on Instagram. I'm most active on Instagram. It's New Perspectives MP as in Matt Phifer. New Perspectives MP on Instagram.
Okay. I'm Rasheedah Anderson. You can follow me on Let's Talk About It with Rasheedah on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Again, that's Let's Talk About It with Rasheedah. Thanks once again, Matthew. Remember to go to flynubianqueen.com and subscribe there. Text Queens to 31996. Also, you still have time to like the post and to share it. Please share it so that we bring other people into the conversation. They can watch it in the rebroadcast. Remember that we are on iTunes. If you want to watch us on the go, go to iTunes and search Fly Nubian Queen and subscribe there. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. You will be seeing more of Matthew and I in coming weeks. Again, catch us every Sundays here on the couch where we're having conversations about issues that are affecting us in the Black community, but from a mental health perspective. We also want to normalize the conversation around mental health. We want our people to be healed. Some of the information that Matthew shared here was very valuable if you are keying into what he was saying about how to build healthy relationships, how to strengthen your relationship, and indicators of whether or not your relationship is healthy or if it's healthy. And so I think that it's your example, it would show that the relationship with the husband and wife who was the waitress, that they have a healthy relationship because she was able to share with him something very intimate that if he was any other guy, he could have flipped out about that. But he seems like he was secure in himself and a wise man that he decided to use it to his benefit. Those are indicators, and I think it's always important to do all that you can to strengthen your relationships. And please reach out to Matthew if you are even questioning. If you just want to give it a test to see how strong your relationship is, please reach out to him. Again, catch us Sundays. We'll be off this Sunday. It's Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers. But then we will resume next Sunday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's been great, Matthew. Until next time.
All right. See you soon.
Okay. See you soon. Bye, you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.